So I always see in videos people saying, feminism is for men too. And I don't know, I'm just stupid. I don't get it. Maybe it just hasn't been pitched the right way. Maybe somebody really needs to sell it in a language that I understand. So let's give it a shot.
Thank you. This is awesome. I just want to thank everyone who put together TEDx Stetson U event. This is so cool. I've played soccer here at Stetson for the men's team for the past 4 years, and so I've played in front of screaming fans, tournaments, championship games, but this is still by far the most nerve-wracking experience I've had.
Well, great. We got ourselves a manly man who plays sports. He can explain it in some sort of macho language that my primitive Cro-Magnon brain can understand. Except he doesn't really have the body language or posture of an athlete. I mean, he looks like, not to put too fine of a point on it, he looks like one of these guys that if I were to gently toss a set of car keys at, he'd kind of just spaz the fuck out, maybe hurt himself, not catch the car keys. I've learned to identify people like this because that shit is embarrassing for everyone. You gotta know I'm gonna coin a term, spaz catcher. You gotta know a spaz catcher when you see one, so you can walk over to them and gently place whatever object it is directly into their palm and wait for their fingers to close around it. I mean, I'm not calling you a liar, sir. Not out loud, I'm not.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Over the past year and a half or so here at Stetson, I have enrolled in a feminist philosophy course, and I've also become vegetarian. And these are pretty two unrelated topics.
I don't know if they're totally unrelated. I mean, people who talk about their feminist theory classes or talk about their veganism, they both tend to be insufferable, so there's that little confluence.
Except for the ways that many of my male friends, teammates, and colleagues reacted to them. With varying degrees of hostility and joking around, I heard things like, dude, that's so gay, what a bitch, pussy, and faggot.
I can already tell I'm gonna have to hit the sauce. May as well start now. I know it's an excuse to drink, but most of my excuses to drink are way worse than that. So let me ask you, Mr. Speaker. When the fellas were giving you shit, a little good-natured ribbing, I assumed that you just kind of chuckled it off and it wasn't a big deal, and then you guys became the best of friends, and now they respect you, and they even respect feminism and veganism a little bit more. Is that what happened? I bet that's what happened.
Now, I know my friends had met my girlfriend, so they weren't explicitly addressing my sexuality or my sexual orientation. And instead, what they were doing is what a lot of gender studies scholars call homosocial bonding, which is where men perform gender roles for and with each other in a group setting.
Yeah, we should probably cancel that trip to Vegas. Turns out I might be terrible at betting.
And so what they were doing is identifying certain things like about women's issues or not eating meat and identifying them as not masculine. And so you can think of it as a box of masculinity, right, where only certain traits or characteristics are allowed in and everything else is labeled either effeminate or homosexual, but certainly not masculine. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, boys will be boys, that's just the way men are.
Yeah, it pretty much is. And I mean, if you just stood your ground and maintained some good humor about the whole thing, you'd be best of friends with those guys, despite being a dainty little flower. But that didn't happen, so here we are.
But this is in fact not true, and this is because there's no natural way for men to act in society. And this is because there's a difference between sex and gender.
Difference being, most guys have had both, and you've only had one. But
Sex, referring to one's biological and sexual and reproductive self, whereas gender refers to the social and political positions we then place those bodies into.
That is some fascinating shit right there. Please do go on.
In society. We know this from studying gynocentric matriarchal societies, very women-centered societies, cultures that recognize 3 genders, as well as the Haudenosaunee, or the Iroquois tribe in North America, who, interestingly enough, had no reported cases of rape.
Now, did that Uruguay tribe, did they have... I'm so drunk now. Did they have police stations? I mean, where accounts of crimes could just be recorded? I mean, did they have a really solid definition for rape? Or maybe they were so rapey it was considered normal. Like, guy rapes a woman, that's just like, psh, romancing. These details do matter, because those could totally explain the lack of reports of rapes.
By men or women. Their respect for women in all walks of life, as well as their very connectedness with the natural environment, were actually seen as reasons for viewing them as lesser developed beings by the Europeans who came in. So you can imagine the white European colonists coming to what they thought was a new land and saying, "What are you guys doing? You don't dominate your women in the political sphere?"
I can pretty much guarantee you that they were not thinking that. They might have been thinking, man, I mean, look at all this land. It's kind of an inconvenience that these people are here, but it's not like they have good organization. I mean, just kind of shooing them out of the way ought to be easy. It's not like they have guns and shit. Or even like an established governmental body that can like draft people and tax them, yada yada. I mean, yes, it's going to be a pain in the ass, but let's just go ahead and take this land. Fucking primitives. That's probably closer to what they were thinking.
You haven't exploited all these natural resources around you? If only you were as advanced as we are. Now, I'm not here to bash white European colonists, right? What I'm trying to point out is the way that gender roles are socially and culturally specific. They're certainly not natural.
Fascinating. So, I suppose the women folk went and hunted the bison and shit like that, while the men folk stayed at home sewing things and watching after the little Uruguayans, right?
As Dr. Sally Haslinger writes, once we've noted that our experience of the world is already an interpretation of it, we begin to raise questions about the adequacy of our conceptual framework.
Fuck you, you're drunk!
So in other words, once we've realized that what we thought was an objective reality is really only our subjective perception of it, we begin to assess whether our way of doing things is good or bad.
And I'm sure that was a real fucking mind blower for you, but I kind of reached that stage of inquisitiveness at around, 4.5 years old, so, I mean, I'm sure that's impressive, just not to me.
And so I'm here today to talk to you about the social construction of gender, and specifically masculinity. Hopefully we can all come out of this with the understanding that feminism is very much for men too. Now, I'm going to continue here in a second, and we're going to have a little bit of fun with the way that meat and food symbolize masculinity.
I'm sure it will just be loads of fun. I will concede that meat does symbolize masculinity.
I'd like to then talk about how this restrictive view of masculinity that we often see is bad for everyone. And finally, I'd like to...
Okay, so why is it that every single vegan I have ever fucking met has permanent sniffles? What is up with that shit? You know, I had a live feed, 4 hours, not one fucking sniffle. And I have congealed cigar tar up in my sinuses. Why is it when you stop eating meat, you're just constantly all day and all night? That's why people don't like vegans. All that loud fucking sniffling. It's hard to concentrate with a vegan just breathing loudly, you know, barely clinging to life, sniffling like a motherfucker. I'm sorry. Tangent.
Talk about the invisibility of unexamined privilege. Now, I mentioned my vegetarianness earlier, and I will spare you all my personal, ethical, environmental, and health reasons for eating meat, for not eating meat.
And I sincerely thank you for that. I really, really do. Thank you.
One, because it would take up way too much time, but also because it's entirely beside the point. But what I learned from this is that what I thought were my personal food choices actually had social consequences and were met with different social expectations.
You know, I'm always finding these fucking pennies all around my apartment. But I think today I found their mother. That's how pennies work, right? No, I was listening. To play devil's advocate, might the social consequences come from you talking about it and expecting people to give a good goddamn? Is that the case? Because people, if you're always talking about shit that is of absolutely no interest to them, they might just, I don't know, do a few things to get you to shut the fuck up.
We need not look any further than pop culture and mass media messages to understand how masculinity is constructed and then reinforced. So I'd like to show you an ad that aired a few years ago for Hummer. And we'll just watch the video and then we can talk about it afterwards.
Well, you say we needn't look any further than that, but it sure would be nice to get some, I don't know, what do you call them? Scientists to study the neurophysiological differences between male and female brains. But you know what? I will go with you on this trip. I will watch your ad or whatever it is and totally not nap during this time, so that's cool.
Now, I would show the ad again for you guys, but I don't want to mess with the technology and have something go wrong. So if it went by a little too fast for you, towards the end there, basically a man walks into a grocery store and starts checking out the items he's collected, right? And he's got some vegetables, some greens, but most noticeably is tub of organic tofu. And this is meant to symbolize, just pretty much any food that isn't meat. It's almost an anti-meat substance in this context. And so as he's checking out his items, the next guy comes up to him and starts laying down a rack of ribs, some steaks, sausages, just animals on animals. But also charcoal, right? So it's not just about what a real man eats, but how he prepares it and who's preparing it. So you can imagine a man in his backyard grilling his steaks and just in his element, certainly not in the kitchen where women prepare food.
Okay, when you didn't show it again because of the technological glitches that are possible, which by the way makes you a coward, that helps me understand why you've even seen these commercials, because even though it's the 21st century and we have TiVo or online streaming shit, I guess you can't figure out how to not watch commercials. Okay, I got you. Totally fascinated. My attention is focused on you, sir. Keep going.
And I just thought this was a really interesting ad because it's not a food commercial. It's a car commercial, but it's using food in a way to symbolize masculinity.
Sniffle one more time, motherfucker. I dare ya. I double dog dare ya. Sniffle one more goddamn time.
And so, the first guy, he looks over and he sees, he almost has a crisis in his masculinity, and he's not sure what to do about it. He feels a void in what it means to be a real man. And so what does he do? He sees a magazine and goes out and buys a Hummer, effectively restoring the balance, right? And so on a funny aside as well, it's also equating masculinity with environmental degradation, right? Because if you're not a man, you got to somehow go out and buy this big gas-guzzling car.
Yes, that's fascinating. With black men, it would be rims and spinners and shit like that. Or some really nice kicks. No racist. Yes, we have these arbitrary status symbols for both men and women. So do you suppose that the commercial programs that shit in, or simply takes advantage of the pre-existing programming? And that pre-existing programming, what do you suppose the BIOS that it's written on is comprised of? Do you think it's just a tabula rasa, or do you think that maybe, just maybe, there might be some sexual dimorphism, not only in physicality, but mentality and behavior of men and women? But no, that's crazy talk, despite being confirmed by science. I don't normally get into this because I don't want to discourage fat people, or give them the excuse that a slow metabolism is a thing, but I actually totaled up the number of calories that I consume in a day, and it's between 4,500 and 4,800, and about half of that is meat. So Yeah, I am getting a little chubby, but I should be way fatter. I didn't even count the booze in my calculation. I had some kind of point I was building to. Oh yes, meat contains carnitine, as well as creatine. Now you've probably seen the supplements for bodybuilding, creatine phosphate. But back in the ancient times, when you had warriors going to fight people that needed big fat muscles with an energy reserve, well, those warriors had the meat, and the women folk did not, because they didn't need that kind of slashing people's heads off kind of energy reserve. Maybe it's a little outdated, but, I mean, I'm not a manly man, but compared to you, I look like fucking Rambo. I'm just saying, man.
But masculinity doesn't just use food in ways that it's constructed, you know. We only need to look at, you know, from the moment we're born, we're receiving gender-specific messaging. You're either wrapped in a blue towel or a pink towel.
Hey, this is one of those rare occasions where my life experience actually comes in handy. I've worked at a number of hospitals, and, yeah, depending on whether it's a premature, on schedule, yada yada baby, sex has no bearing on the color of the shit they're wrapped in. You are farting out of your mouth and or talking out of your ass, motherfucker.
If a boy gets hurt and scrapes his knee or something, starts to cry, he's immediately told from a very, very young age, you know, don't cry, be tough, you gotta be strong, don't show any weakness. Whereas a girl in the very same situation is treated much differently. She's allowed to show emotions, and she's cared for.
Okay, I'm going to try to be very nice about this one. I understand that stupid people have a terrible memory. They just can't remember shit. So people say, this happened when you were very young. You're like, well, it must have, because I don't remember. It's all a fog to me. But I remember when I was young. And I gotta say, it was around age 11 or 12 that anything resembling that message really started getting through. Before that, you cry. Even as a male, even in Hickburg, Kansas, you get sympathy. Nobody's like, be tough, soldier. Everybody's like, oh, you poor baby. Okay, it's gonna be alright. But of course your brain is mush, so you can't remember as far back as last Tuesday, let alone your childhood. So you're pretty suggestible about what happened. But I'm just going to tell you that what you're saying is false. Friends, can we hug now?
Very gently. And so as these children grow up, you know, you just walk into any Toys R Us aisle, right?
If I saw you walking into any Toys R Us aisle, I'd call the cops. And watch my videos, I'm not a calling the cops kind of guy, but you, Toys R Us, suspicious.
And you will very easily see, you know, the girls' toys and the boys' toys. It's an easy distinction.
I know, man. It's almost like that easy distinction between the green light on the traffic thing that says go, the red one that says stop, and the yellow one that says, punch it, motherfucker, it's about to turn red. It's almost like our primate brains recognize colors and associate them with various things pretty quickly and easily, and somebody noticed that and found a way to exploit it. I mean, why not just make the toys all colors and let the kids wander around with their childlike attention span until they get bored and buy something that isn't super expensive, because they're not even in the right section, they have no attention span. No, sorry, go on. It's misogyny. It's culture, it's patriarchy, it is oppression. Continue.
For the girls, you've got they're socialized to play with pink Barbie dolls and other kinds of dolls, whereas boys are taught to play with blue action figures, trucks, you know, building blocks, these G.I. Joes with their biceps out to here.
Are they really taught to play with that stuff, though? I mean, I know it's cute how you can't remember your childhood because you're, what's the word, retarded. But I can. And the only masculinizing teaching that my dad gave at that range of ages is this. I had my hair grow out really, really long, like past my shoulders. And my dad finally put his foot down, took me to the barber, had that shit cut off short, and oh my god, the fight that ensued between him and my mother was epic. But nobody ever taught me what to play with. I like mechanical types of things. Lincoln Logs. Legos. I don't give a fuck what you think I should play with. I have always done exactly what I wanted to do. For instance, when I was just 5 years old, I got an entire roll of Scotch tape and I tried to tape the door of my bedroom closed. Because I'm like, okay, one piece of Scotch tape has this much adhesive power, why don't I just see if I can absolutely seal this door? Long story short, you can't actually seal a door with Scotch tape, and long story slightly longer, I was not allowed anywhere near tape until I was 11, so, yeah. Oh shit! My foot's a feminist.
Right? So on one hand, you're getting these very hyper-sexualized images of women for girls to play with, and these very hyper-masculine toys for boys. And the problem with this is that these are very restrictive views of both genders, but these constant images are the only images that we're really seeing. We're not seeing anything else. And what I'd like to emphasize is how unrealistic this picture is. And so as men go on living their lives, they often struggle to legitimize themselves as real men in different contexts.
What did I tell you about sniffling, bitch? Anyway, that's going to happen no matter what, whatever the definition of a real man is. The modern definition being a, whining, crying little bitch who gets nothing from his slave labor. So, I mean, man's going to try to justify himself by the current standard of what masculinity is. In this case, you're doing that by being the biggest sniffling veganist bitch. Back in the, medieval ages, a guy like myself might have thrived a little bit more because I'm not a little fucking bitch. But you see what I'm saying? It's always going to be a problem. Hug? We're going to hug like friends? No homo.
And I'm not saying that men are the worst victims here, because often, as I said, in homosocial bonding, it's melded with misogyny as well as homophobia.
So you say, but you are neither a woman nor a homosexual, if I take it your word. But still, when you flit your little fairy ass around in front of some guys, they give you shit about it. Is that really misogyny or homophobia? Or are they just giving you shit because you're weak and you couldn't catch a balloon if it was gently tossed at you? And you'd probably shit your pants if that happened. Misogyny and homophobia? Are you a woman? Do you have a vagina? Okay, it's not misogyny then. Homophobia, you might be a little more justified because you're obviously a homosexual, however much you try to hide it, so okay, you got a point. Homophobia is bad. Guys who don't accept gay guys, well, you're intolerant, you're bigots. So, if you're treating this gay man who's on stage like crap just because he's gay, then fuck you and everything you stand for. I'm on your side, bro. You want to make out? No homo?
So it's identifying everything that isn't masculine and kind of denigrating that while bringing up the value of being a man.
Well, yeah. When you're a man, among men, doing manly things, and by the way, soccer is not one of them, let's say football. If you're all like, oh my god, I chipped a nail, oh, I have to file that down. I realize that this is just a Starbucks stick, I don't have an emery board, it's just a prop, use your imagination. Oh, it's like so uneven and stuff. Well, yes, in that situation, being a man is obviously a virtue, because you're doing manly shit. Alright, and if you don't like that, there's nothing wrong with that. Go hang out with the women folk, talk about their insipid shit with shoes and the boys, or whatever it is they talk about. Frankly, I would rather be physically tortured than listen to that shit, as I've learned from personal experience. That doesn't make what they're saying wrong, I just avoid it. So if you don't like manly shit, avoid that. Easy peasy, man. Simplest thing in the world.
And in a male-dominated society where men dictate how society functions...
Say, you're a man. How's that dictation going for you, buddy? Oh, God!
And the values that we should have, masculinity can also operate in systemic and institutional ways as well. It's so important for us to reject this as the natural way of things.
Important that we reject that. So it's not natural. Are you suggesting that there exists a God in Jesus, and they're interfering with the natural order? Because as far as I understood it, absolutely everything that happens is natural. Or supernatural. But even supernatural things would interact with the natural world via some mechanism and would, ergo ipso facto, be natural. So what you're saying is nonsense. Incidentally, I just recently learned that pennies are not minted, but they are birthed by larger pennies, so my whole worldview is topsy-turvy. Just so you go easy on me, man.
It's not natural for only 15% of CEOs and higher up in corporate positions to be women. It's not natural for only 18% of Congress to be made up of women.
How very interesting, sir. One would think that since all throughout history men were disposable and therefore had to compete for positions of power, where women just had a natural intrinsic value for the survival of the species, one might think it very natural that women might not have the predilection to run for office, but I would love to see your peer review evidence, just to make sure.
And it's certainly not natural for women to be paid less than men for the same exact jobs. Instead, these are symptoms of a society that's been created by men, which values masculinity above any other notions of gender.
You mad, bro? Are you angry, brother?
And so while gender is this construct, right, it's created, it still has very real consequences and implications for those affected by it in society. But as the dominant group, men, we don't really have to think about these kind of things. And this brings me to my last point on privilege. And just as, you can't talk about racism without talking about white privilege, we cannot properly talk about sexism without addressing male privilege. And male privilege is the privilege not to have to think about one's gendered identity. So when we hear the word gender, we often think women. When we hear the word race, we think black, Hispanic, Asian, and other minority groups.
You say we, but you seem to be forgetting that there are some people in the world who have more brain wattage than that which is necessary to light a Christmas bulb to half brightness. Admittedly, most people are pretty fucking stupid, okay? Conceded. But what you think is not what all of us think. Yeah, I'm just doing a video response to this douchebag. Don't worry about it. Let's see them fine-ass titties. Oh my god, it is not jungle fever, okay? It's not a racial thing. I just love fine-ass titties. Now bring those sweet chocolate titties over here. Christ. It's all about race with you people. I didn't mean anything by you people, just bring those titties over here. Jesus, I'm drunk. I need titties.
And we hear the word sexual orientation, we think gay people or the LGBTQ community. What we're not thinking of, and what's allowed to go unexamined, are white, straight males. And this is who we're not talking about. And this is the reason why, when we hear reports on the news of rapes or sexual assaults, they're often in the passive voice. A woman was raped or a woman was assaulted. And it's very rarely that it says, a man raped a woman. The man is left out of this. He's allowed to be invisible.
Or it could be that we don't want to make men the protagonist of their own rape story. An epic saga of the man against the world, or the vagina as it may be. Maybe we're focused on the people we actually care about. That could be it too. But you know what? I'm probably just fucking insane. I am eating mixed nuts with tweezers. To make sure I eat them in order. Gotta get the cashew. The pistachio. Fuck, I dropped it. Still not as crazy as you, though.
So he's not only left out of the headline, but he's left out of how we view the problem and then how we view solutions to solve this.
Oh my god, man, did you know that, like, when a woman is raped, like, even though they don't mention it, man, like, a dude actually raped her and shit. Why is the news not covering this? It's like a total conspiracy and shit. I had no idea that when rapes occurred, there was a rapist involved. Fuck, man.
It's the reason why in the wake of these mass shootings, we grasp for explanations of mental illness when the perpetrators are white, young boys, and adults. They're allowed and they have the privilege of being viewed as individuals with personal and psychological problems rather than having their actions be attributed to some sort of racialized or gendered group that they belong to.
Wow, irony. You hung out with some black people, you'd realize that when bitches be talking crazy, brothers like myself say, that bitch be talking crazy. Not because of her skin, but because she be talking crazy, motherfucker. But, you know, you're a vegan feminist. You're probably racist, too. I didn't say that out loud. No, you're not racist. Racist fucking cracker-ass cracker motherfucker.
And so I'd like to conclude by saying that I do not wish to generalize the experiences of all men as the same, just as a white feminist would not want to generalize her experiences as those of all women.